Hey gang, this is John Newton, Snap-on John 100. I just thought I'd show you something I just got. It's orange and black Baco. Check that out. I couldn't resist. I found out that Snap-on owns Baco, and so when I saw this saw, I had to get it. I'm doing this video this way. I'm gonna have to piece things together because when I did the first part of it last week, I think it was, the first half of the whole video didn't get recorded because I forgot to push the record button. And so I'm going to just be splicing stuff in to where it's applicable. I'm doing this to help out Northof50, who was having trouble with lighting fires with the fire steel and getting frustrated with trying to find dry materials and get that to work. Also making feather sticks and stuff. And so I thought I would try to show him some of the stuff that I do when it's damp out. And you also have to realize practicing these fire making building skills is, especially the primitive ones, one of the main purposes besides, you know, owning that skill is once you've really gotten that down, you realize that you're never ever going to be in the woods without another method of making a fire. So I don't ever intend on using a bow and drill or even flint and steel to help my survivability in the woods. I do that for fun. If by some horrible chance that I would be stuck and not have anything, I do own that skill so I could do it. But it's mostly when I realize how hard that method is, it makes me appreciate the modern methods. So I'm never without them. No matter where I go, I always have 2 or 3 methods of starting a fire every single day. One of the things, maybe I should point out things I stay away from. Stuff like this looks really good, but I have found that unless it's in the middle of the winter, it's not dry enough. So you can see the stem is still kind of green. So this looks good, but I stay away from it. As with most things like leaves, I don't really like using ground up leaves. They also are deceivingly damp when they seem like they're dry. And so this time of year, I'm going to be looking for other things. One of them is cattail. And this is where I'm not sure if you have this at your disposal, but when you're walking around, try to see if you can find some areas that are more damp. This is where the wetlands is where cattail tends to grow, and I get the ones that have started to come apart. And you can actually see this one has signs of being rained on. The top of it's kind of drooped down. But cattail still is a good flash tender, even if it has been rained on before. So I'm going to collect a couple of these, and then I'll be moving on. Here's something right here. It's a type of thistle. This right here. To watch the burrs, they hurt, but that's something that will work. See, right there's one. The other one's already spent. So I'm just going to collect some of those. What I'm typically looking for is something that is like down. Like that is like down. Most of this is gone already, but there's a little bit left. Okay, so I'm going to save some of that. Next on the list, milkweed. So I'm going to collect this along with that center strip. I think it's called the ovum. Can't remember exactly. Might be wrong, but this, I'll show you right here, this thing. This is a really good thing that will actually burn. Okay, I'm just taking a picture of this on the ground. This is a piece of dead basswood, and yellow poplar or tulip poplar would be it would give you the same thing. What I'm looking for is the inner bark. Also cottonwood. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break this up and strip some of the inner bark out of it. Here's what I was talking about. This is a piece of basswood, and I'm just going to break it and expose the inner bark. So now what I'm just going to do is I'm just peeling this bark. Here's the bark. Here's the inner stick. You can hang on to these because these burn like crazy. And I don't know if you have basswood in your area. I'll have to find out where you live exactly. I'm not sure. But I'm running out of battery. I'm going to have to close this and try to put another battery in. Stay with me. Okay, I'm back. What you're going to get is you just strip this bark off, and you have to get rid of the outer crusty bark, and underneath that is a fibrous bark. But it takes a lot of work. So this isn't something you're going to come into the woods and make a bird's nest in 10 minutes with this kind of material. See the fibers? Also, if it's got some dampness, the more you work it, the drier it gets. You can also store it inside your shirt pocket, or if you've got some cotton bandana, you can wrap it in cotton, because cotton absorbs moisture, and that'll suck the moisture out of it. But you just keep roughening this up, pulling the fibers apart, and you'll end up stripping off this woody part. There's some woody parts in here too, and those will be falling away to the side. Okay, so see that? You can just keep peeling this down, and some bark is better than others. If you find some that's really old and rotted, it might be past its usefulness. So you just keep peeling the outer stuff off. That's the hard outer stuff. And underneath it is the good. Okay. You just break this up. And there's even more under here. It almost looks like netting. Okay. I've shown you this before, but I wanted to just to let you see that this is a lot of work. But when it's really wet out, now what I'm suggesting is, if there's any pine there, I'm not sure, I know you've heard of fatwood. If you can find some fatwood, which is in my area, I don't find it very often looking at like a stump or whatever. I found most of mine by going to a lower branch of a dead pine or one that fell over, and working right up against the trunk and getting the lower branches out from away from the trunk. Even if you have to cut one off flush against the trunk, a lot of times there'll be fatwood in about a couple of inches inside that, or from where you cut it off out. Or you can just keep working one. If it's dead and fell over, you can work one until you can actually pull the knot out, and you've got the branch, and then it looks almost like a spear point where that went into the center of the trunk, and that should have fatwood inside that too, usually. Once again though, sometimes it's hit or miss. I found one was really good, and the other one didn't have any in it, and I just threw it away. But that's where in my area, which is upstate New York, that's where I find my fatwood. The guys out west seem to find it laying all over, like it's everywhere. Kind of jealous of that sometimes. But but if you've got some fatwood, what you want to do is shave off, and I'll demonstrate that if I have some time, and show you what you can start. Because if you want to use a ferro rod, I have found a ferro rod is disappointing if I think I'm going to get something to ignite in 1 or 2 strikes, unless I'm using flash tinder, and that's why I collected some of that. If you want it to start on fire just like a cotton ball would, you need stuff that's just like a cotton ball. So things that I use is let me get it for you. The stuff I use, if you want it to burn catch on fire like cotton, you got to use stuff that's like cotton. This cattail and this milkweed, the other stuff that was thistle top, that stuff will catch a spark on the first or second try. That'll catch a spark on your first or second try, just like cotton does. But it's a flash tinder, and what I mean by flash tinder is it lights up just like and then it's gone. So it burns like gunpowder. That's not going to get something, especially if it's marginally damp, it's not going to get anything else to burn. What you do to get to work with flash tinder is you mix it all throughout with the other stuff, so when it flames up, you've got things that will actually light with the flame. And that's like Dave Canterbury said, anything that lights with the flame is a fuel, not an accelerant. So if you can get some of that, mix it with something like this. Also take a feather stick, or I mean a piece of fatwood, and shave off tiny thin shavings into a pile and mix that in there where you're going to light it. And when the flash tinder goes, so does the fatwood. Okay, so let me get this a little bit more processed. This is really far away from being a good bird's nest material for a bow and drill. with a bow and drill you want it really fine and hairy. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try to light this with a ferro rod, because that's what you like to use. The other suggestion I have is start using a flint and steel, and that will teach you more about what it takes to get a fire going with finer things. Okay, so I'll work this up some more, and then I'll get back to you when I've got it to where I think it will work. Okay, and this, mind you, is this piece of wood had been laying over on the ground, so this material has got some dampness still in it. Okay, but you just keep working it. Since everything's wet, I'm just gonna light it on top of this bark, keep it off the ground. But now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna infuse flash tinder in it. And just try to work it so that you get this other stuff intermixed. Something's going to take a spark easily. Okay, now you see what I have here. Now what I'm going to add to it is I had a piece of fatwood. Oh, the other thing that I was collecting yesterday was pieces of pine pitch. So you go around pine trees and look to see where they've been damaged, and then you can collect some of the pine resin that has that the tree has exuded to protect itself. Okay, and here's a little piece of fatwood that I had. And I'm not going to use any of the pine resin, but I am going to use, that's the ovum that's in the inside of the milkweed. There's another one. Okay. So, now what you do is you take a trusty knife, this is the Blackbird, and get to a spot. You see me over here? I'm going to get a piece of this bark so I can collect it, and I'm just going to shave. Try to see if I can zoom in a little better. Show you what I'm doing here. So I'm going to take this piece of fatwood, and it's got some what's on it is the milkweed. But as you can see, I'll take some of these off and show them to you closer. And I'm not trying to make a feather stick. What I'm trying to do is focus on getting thin curls off of it.
That's the secret to a good feather stick too, is to try to get the feathers off. Focus on thin feathers, not on keeping them on the stick. I think everybody falls into that trap, myself included. Okay. Let me show you what these look like. Right there. That's what we're looking for. And we're going to put that in the nest too. I'm going to make some more, get some more of them. That's not enough, but you see how I'm just, oop, it jumped off. This is like gold, so you want to try to not let it disappear on you. See that color? And you just get that by finding, this was just a branch toward the bottom of a old, there's a red pine probably, I'm not sure, I can't remember. Because what I'm looking for is for this to start on the first strike, because I noticed that's what you were getting frustrated at, taking so long. And I'll tell you right now, I've had some experience with making fires, and if you expect to get a fire going with a ferro rod just by striking curls of wood, you're going to be very disappointed all of the time. I've had them light up on the first strike, and that's a complete miracle, because usually it takes upwards of, could be up into 20 or more. But if you focus on thinness, and something like this you could almost scrape. Okay. All right. Now let's see how this will go. Okay. This is a Light My Fire Army fire steel, and I'm using the back of a saw from a Leatherman Wave. Now the other thing you have to worry about is, with something like this, is it needs to, if it starts to act like it wants to go out, spread it out. And I just kind of turn it over on itself. But there you go. I hope that helps. because what I've been seeing, and I can understand your frustration, is you're trying to light, see how fast that goes up? You're trying to light stuff that is either, either you said it was damp or curls of wood with a fire steel, and having that light up within only a few strikes is very rare. But if you want to use a fire steel, make sure you put in some flash tinder. Like, see how this is, it wants to go out because it's too compressed. And the inner bark is burning now. And the trick to getting the inner bark to burn like that, especially when it was kind of damp, was to intermix the flash tinder with it. And of course, helping it out with some fatwood or some pitch. I didn't put any pitch in it, but I put some shavings of fatwood in there. I don't know if that would have, if it would have been impossible without it. I don't think so. If it took off before it even got to that part. But there you have it. I got to put this out because, well, I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you learned something from it. Once again, it might be a wise thing to try using flint and steel, because that will force you to have a dry and finely made bird's nest. So by using that, you'll learn more about what it takes to make a fire, and once you've got that, then getting a fire going with a fire steel will be child's play. Well, until we meet again, God bless. All right. I just thought I'd show you the flint and steel. And when it's damp out, you want to make sure you keep this closed up. So I've got a piece of charred cloth right here, a piece of flint. I'm putting it on the top edge with my thumb on it, and I've got it right up to the edge where I'm going to strike, and I want to hold it at an angle of about 60 degrees or so. So I'm striking down, but I'm also have this edge so that it's going to slice a thin slice of steel off. So it's not straight, like it's not straight 90 degrees, and it's not 45. It's more like 60. Okay, let's see how many times it'll take me to get this. I'm not used to holding it way up in the air like this, but the camera's and it looks like this charred cloth is damp already. We'll try it again. I flipped it over. I'm getting good sparks. There, I finally got one. There you go. Now you see how long that took. So nothing, sometimes it's fast and sometimes it takes a little while. And I'm going to just place this in the center of my bird's nest. And there you go. I'm going to be showing you
how to find fatwood in this video. That's one of my secrets. I always carry fatwood with me, and you can either buy it or you can find it in the woods. And here's one source that I find in New York. It's easier than digging through stumps, where guys from out west and down south seem to be able to get it really easily from stumps. I haven't been too successful, but here's where I find on a living tree. You see these branches, if you saw them off right up against flush with the tree, a lot of times there'll be fatwood on it, just about an inch out. And later on I'll show you how to find it from a completely dead tree. Okay, here's some prime examples of getting fatwood. I wish I would have left my camera rolling. This tree, that as you can see right there, is broken off and leaning way up there. It's leaning against another tree. It's completely dead. And where it was rotted, if you can see the spot over here, see that spot right there? Okay, right there. And over there on that side. Back up a little bit. These two areas down here and here, with my foot I knocked this piece out right here. It's all completely rotted and you can see it's spongy, but right here, that's not. That's all fatwood. Same with this one. I can carve this away and there's fatwood in the center. Over here, at this spot right here, I cut off that piece. That's all fatwood. See that? And see how it was just a broken off piece? That's what I was talking about. If you cut it right up against the tree trunk, there'll be fatwood maybe an inch or two in. Okay, and if you could chop that out, there's fatwood inside there going in, and it looks like the end of a spear point. It's kind of conical like that one piece you saw. I'll show you here. Here's another place where you can find fatwood. You can see right there, I cut that off. That's fatwood there. The rest of this, if you can see, is completely rotted. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut around this area and pull that fatwood out, and I'll show you what it looks like. Stay with me. There's two good examples of fatwood. See right there? And they were where the tree branches come out, and I chopped it out of there and there, and if you went up the tree, like if it was falling on the ground, I could go to every one of those spokes where the branches come out and find it. I'm going to carve this down so you can see it. Here's the fatwood I got. If you look at that, just look how red that is just under the surface of that gray dead. It looks like it's all dead and rotted. You just scrape underneath it, it's this bright red, resinous. That's beautiful. Alright, that's one trick. And also another good source of pine resin is finding damaged trees. This one has been pecked by a woodpecker, and look at all the resin, because the tree secretes the resin to try to protect itself. Right, there's a big blob right there, but you can collect that, and that is an accelerant. So these are some just tricks. If when you get into a pine You said that there was hardwoods and there, you didn't really say it implied. Here's a source right here of bird nest material. I just happened to walk by here. There's inner bark right there that you can gather. Okay, this is stuff you want to use for your bird's nest. Also, one good source of good burning wood to get your fire started, if you're around pines, is what's called squaw wood, which is these dead branches that come out of here. These right here, those branches stay dry. So even if everything is wet, the branches on a pine tree like this that are dead and the ones lower to the ground are going to be a good source to get your fire started. And if you can find trees that have a lot of branches, you can go all the way to the very tip ends to get your fine stuff, like these. See how small that is? That's smaller than a toothpick. So you can collect your finest kindling on a pine also, if you're in an area that has pines. Okay, that's the one caveat.